I'm Mayor Mike Walsh, and I'd like to welcome you to the Mayor's Corner. This is a program where we provide viewers with information about city government, pertinent issues, and things that may be of interest within our community. I will be interviewing individuals in an effort to give a first-hand perspective of concepts, ideas, and involvements of a particular subject. The topic for this episode is the Economic Development and Planning Department, and my guest is Kim Flom, the Economic Development and Planning Director of the City of De Pere. Welcome, Kim, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Could you give our viewers a little bit of information about you and some of your background?
I'd love to. I have been working in this world of planning and economic development for over 16 years now. I started with a degree from Madison, landscape architecture actually, and after that I spent some time in the private sector working for firms in both Baltimore, Maryland and Chicago, Illinois. Did that for about 6 years, worked on a whole bunch of different projects, and then had the opportunity to work as a planner for a suburb outside of Chicago called Orland Park. Orland Park is about 60,000 people on the southwest side. I spent 9 years there, 9 wonderful years, and while I was there, I was able to get my Master's of Public Administration that had an emphasis on economic development. Around 2012, my husband and I welcomed our second little boy into the world and said, you know what, we kind of want to head home to Wisconsin. Even though we lived away from the state for a long time, we remain diehard Packer fans, and our family is still in the area. We grew up in the Fox cities. And in 2014, I had the opportunity to work with the City of Green Bay as their Community Development Director. Spent about 18 months there before making the best job move ever with the City of De Pere in October of 2015.
Well, we're certainly happy you did that, and you've been doing a great job since you've been here, and we appreciate your work effort, and we look forward to many more years with you. So could you tell me a little bit about the Economic Development and Planning Department?
We're a small but committed team. We have about 4 people, and our work is really diverse. Every day is different. So essentially we're charged with implementing and managing the city's comprehensive plan and zoning code. To do that, we process planning applications that range from rezonings, site plans, right-of-way vacations. We also staff a number of committees. So you'll see our group at the Historic Preservation Committee meetings, the Redevelopment Authority meetings, and the Plan Commission meetings. So under the direction of the council, we're looking to guide the growth of the city in an appropriate way. And the committees I mentioned before help us do that. The Historic Preservation Commission, by virtue of its name, focuses on preserving the history and culture of De Pere. The Redevelopment Authority takes a look at all the redevelopment and things that are happening in the downtown. And the Plan Commission is really the oversight for all of our functions, site plans, rezoning, new development. I always tell folks, if you're interested about what projects are happening in the city in terms of new development, take a look at the Plan Commission agendas that are on the city website. Every month they come out and they offer a really good perspective into what might be coming down the pipeline. At the end of the day, our goal is that projects that are developed and built in De Pere reflect the high standards and the high quality that the council and residents have come to expect for this community.
So on these committees, you serve as the advisor?
The advisor or staff liaison. So these committees, the folks who are on these committees are often appointed members of the public. They're volunteer folks volunteering their time and expertise. They offer a great amount of recommendation and insight. We as staff will take the application that's come in, write a report about it, analyze it against our codes, and give a recommendation, where there is a professional resource to help the volunteers make a decision.
Well, it definitely sounds like your department does a lot of different things. Is there one area that you like the best?
Well, I like a lot of parts of my job, which is a good thing. But one of my favorite parts, especially here at the city, is the ability to work with the other departments. Economic development in particular tends to infiltrate a lot of other areas. We work very closely with our GIS and our building divisions. We also work very closely with public works and law. And having that ability to collaborate with a lot of different folks is fabulous. Because my background is in sort of planning and development, probably my personal favorite thing is watching or helping someone develop a project from a sketch on a napkin all the way into a shovel in the ground, all the way into a building that's open. That's very fulfilling, no matter what the size of the project is.
Kim, one of the things that you deal with, of course, is economic development. Could you kind of tell us what economic development really is and what does it mean?
Absolutely. So at the municipal level in particular, economic development is about fostering a business-friendly environment and fostering and helping create a very high quality of life. And that's done in a variety of ways at all levels of the city. It's definitely a group effort. I talked a little bit about our internal partnerships and how that's important, but it's external partnerships too with other agencies, both at the regional and the state level. Economic development at its core really only succeeds when it's a group effort. At the macro level, what we do here is we try to understand and market our community. Who are we? What are our demographics? What do we have to share? Also, what are industry trends and best practices? What types of projects are happening? What are businesses looking for in business parks? What are businesses looking for in the downtown? And is De Pere aligning with that? At the micro level, it really comes down to customer service and collaboration. So an example of this is, say someone owns some land and wants to build a new business. If they come to the city of De Pere, an economic development goal is that we work with them as a project manager and help them navigate all of the different approvals they need. Going from land to a building takes a lot of work. It's a lot of permitting. There are a lot of consultants involved. And having someone who can help another person navigate all of those fields is worth time, and time is money in the development world.
Well, I've heard from different developers throughout my years here that De Pere is one of the easiest communities to work with. And I know you came from Green Bay, but I think some of that is true because we really want people to locate here and bring their businesses here, and I think that's important. Can you tell me a little bit about what your philosophy is in that?
You absolutely cannot discount having a community that's easy to work with. And you know, if you're not involved with the process, it might not come as easily, but what's interesting is every city is different. So if you are a developer and say you are looking to locate 5 different restaurants in the Midwest between Minnesota, Indiana, and Wisconsin, you're working with 5 different communities, 5 different zoning codes, 5 different comp plans, 5 different processes. Every community is different in terms of how they process, what permits they require, what types of engineering they require. That's almost a full-time job in itself, trying to figure that out. So if we as the city can help them through that, again, it's their time we're saving. We're building a reputation as a community that's easy to work with, and therefore we should be able to attract more good development in the future.
And usually the way we work it, I think, is we look at what they have from when they want to open and work backwards. Yep. And I think that's really a terrific way to do it. Kudos to you and your department for doing that, but could you address that a little bit?
Absolutely. You know, it kind of comes down to understanding the needs of the developer and the business. So we have an expertise of what our code requires and what our processes require, but to be able to kind of put ourselves in their shoes and say, okay, here's the date that you'd really like to be under construction, and here are our processes. Let's put together a few time frames for you that work out and have some caveats in it in case something happened, so that we're all on the same page, clear communication going forward. I think developers and builders really appreciate that. It helps them map out their construction schedules and their permitting, and it's very useful.
And they really get to really decide themselves, you know, if they want to be done by this certain period of time, that this is what you have to do in order to do that. And sure, we can push it up a little bit to accommodate them, but I think the way we do it is such a good way to do things.
I definitely enjoy the way we do it in De Pere.
TID, I've heard that before, but what is TID?
So TID stands for Tax Increment Financing District. It's an economic development tool that the state gives communities to help foster growth. And what the city can do is they can create a boundary around a series of properties and say these properties are in a TID district. And that means that portions of the property taxes paid in that boundary can be used for projects in that boundary. There are a lot of people who think if I'm in a TID district, my property taxes are going to be higher than if I'm not, and that's not the case at all. The difference is how the taxes are portioned out. If you're not in a TID district, your tax bill is split up between the different taxing entities like the city and the state and the schools. If you are in a TID, portions of it are split out the same way, but a chunk of it is set aside, given back to the community with the rule that it has to be spent in this district. It's one of our most powerful tools for economic growth here in the city, and we've taken advantage of that.
And how long does a TID district last?
It depends on the type of TID, but generally anywhere between 20 to 27 years, and sometimes there are extensions that are allowed beyond that of about 3 years.
And I think recently they just came out with a new type of TID district for residential.
I think they have the mixed-use TID district, which accommodates some residential development. That is a newer TID district in the state. We don't have one of those in De Pere yet, but the nice thing about that district is that you can use the TID funds to help residential and also help sort of whole neighborhoods, because the goal of the district is to have multiple different land uses within the boundary.
You had mentioned the comprehensive plan. Could you kind of give us an idea of what the plan is and why it's important?
Yeah. The comprehensive plan is one in a series of kind of 3 very important documents that us planner economic development folk like to refer to. Essentially, these are, sometimes they're thick and sometimes they're thin, but they're big documents that are approved by the City Council, and they're our handbooks. Every time we review a project, we're looking in these plans to see if the project aligns with the goals of the city. So the comprehensive plan tells a story of where we want to be in the future. It's the vision for the future, usually 10 to 25 years out. Another plan we often refer to is the Downtown Master Plan. That's a similar plan. It's a visionary document, what the downtown should be like in 10 to 15 years. We also spend a lot of time looking at the zoning code, and the zoning code is our regulatory document. So that actually sets up the rules of how tall your building can be, where the building has to be located on the site, what type of land uses go where.
I think it's important for people to realize that this is a plan, and you go through the plan, and it's exactly that, a plan. You don't have to follow it to the letter. Could you kind of explain a little bit on that?
Absolutely, and that's, the difference there. The zoning code is regulatory, and that has detailed rules, but the comprehensive plan specifically, it's a visionary document, and it's looking far out into the future. It guides growth, but it doesn't direct growth. So I always tell folks, if you're buying a property, it's always good to look at the comp plan to see what it says for what may be going on around the property you're purchasing. But it is just that, it's a plan. And at the end of the day, someone may come in with a proposal that's even better, and then we as staff can take a look at it. That's why we have our committees like the Plan Commission, the Redevelopment Authority, Historic Preservation Commission, and that's why we have all these processes that filter up through the council with public meetings so that we can review everything in an open manner and gain community input and adjust the plan if needed to facilitate development.
I think it's really interesting that I think it was about 5 years ago is when we did the Downtown Master Plan. And by doing that, it was the first time we'd ever had anything for our downtown. And I think it's helpful for the city to have that. Could you kind of explain a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And the De Pere Downtown Master Plan is one that it's actually being implemented, and it's a huge kudos to the city. I've seen a lot of master plans that have been developed and approved, and then they end up sitting on a shelf somewhere and no one looks at them again. The De Pere Downtown Master Plan actually did a fabulous job of coalescing folks who were interested in the downtown, the business owners and the property owners. It had a number of great recommendations that are already being realized in terms of where development is happening, infrastructure projects like pedestrian improvements, the river walk. Having a plan helps guide where those things should be so that when grant opportunities come up and developments come up, it's giving us a structure to say, yep, this fits within our vision and is something that we need to pursue.
I think it's really great that you have a guideline to look down the road. And like I said earlier, you may not do them all, but at least it provides you with the impetus to get out there.
And not, it's great for that. It's great for the residents because then there's a knowledge of what an area is envisioned to become, but it's incredibly powerful as an economic development tool. A lot of developers and folks who build in construction and real estate, they may not be as familiar with De Pere as we are, and they're relying on those plans to indicate, well, here's where I might invest. Oh, look, they're planning for a 5-story building here. That's fabulous. That's what I'm looking to do. Or I might want to do a senior housing building here, but the comprehensive plan says something else. The documents and the plans are really powerful in order to advertise our space to other people.
I think it's important also to get the people with the most to gain and also the most to lose involved in the process with the plan. And I think the city has done that over the years. And could you address that a little bit?
Well, that is the core part of any plan, and actually that's probably one of the reasons the downtown master plan, I'll just use an example, is so successful. The more support and involvement you can have with the public and the stakeholders, the more ownership you have of a plan, the more realistic it is and the better it can be marketed. So the city of De Pere works very hard to make sure that the property owners and the residents know what's coming down the pipeline and know what projects may be around the corner.
What is something uncommon that your department handles, something we probably wouldn't really even think of?
So I mentioned that we're a pretty diverse group. We do a lot of the new development, and that's kind of the flashy stuff. We do a lot of work behind the scenes too, and one of the things we work on are revocable occupancy permits, which is something that I don't think many people even know exists unless you have a sidewalk cafe. Essentially, anytime there's an encroachment in a right-of-way, the city-owned right-of-way or property, we issue this revocable occupancy permit. It's not a difficult process, but it's kind of one of those required, little bit bureaucratic permits that we have to have in place to make sure that everything is aligned in terms of safety in the right-of-way. We also, in our industrial parks, anyone who's driven through any of the industrial parks probably notice in the summer there's usually a lot of crops in the fields, and we do lease our city-owned land to farmers for that, so our department manages those leases as well.
I think that's an important thing too, is that your economic development not only does the downtown, but it also handles the business parks. And we have a few of them, and I think you do a great job in that too.
The industrial parks are a core part of De Pere. It's really exciting to see them grow. There's strong interest in both parks, and again, that's one of the great things about economic development. The downtown is really important and is handled one way. The industrial parks are really important. Even our residential development is important. It all plays into making the community a great place to live, work, and play.
Because you do handle the residential also,
Yep.
So it's really a three-pronged development area that you work with.
Exactly.
What are businesses, and I guess I'm thinking restaurants and retail, what are they looking for when picking a site, and why would they pick De Pere?
Great question. So every business is different, and particularly if you take a look at some of the national retailers, each company has their own secret sauce, and the larger the retailer, the more finite and developed that secret sauce is. So some of them really want to be on a highway, and highway visibility is the number one thing. Others might need a particular shape or size of property, and that's the number one thing. One example is Walgreens. So Walgreens, neighborhood pharmacy, they rely on the number of rooftops. So they don't really care whether they have two Walgreens that are 6 blocks apart or 6 miles apart. As long as the radius around that store has, I think it's 22,000 rooftops. And that's how they locate their stores. They start in an area, they draw a radius around it, and then they kind of move on. But they're capturing a certain number of rooftops because that's what works for their business model. One that I often hear requested is Trader Joe's, which is a very popular grocery store. When I worked with them at Orland Park, their number one demographic need was college education. They wanted their market area to have a 25% bachelor degree attainment. Now, sometimes those things can change over time, and Trader Joe's is now expanding into other markets, but at the time I worked with them, it was all about college education. That was the number one thing they were looking for.
That's certainly true about Trader Joe's. I know that's one of the number one questions I get. Can we get a Trader Joe's here? Or the other one is, can we get a grocery store on the east side? You as an economic development person, how do you get these types of things? Because I think people think, okay, you just go out and say, okay, I want Trader Joe's to come in here. You know, what do we do to get it here? So could you
I wish it
kind
were
of give us
that
background?
easy.
I wish it was too.
I wish it were that easy. I'll go make a call.
There you go.
You know, what you want to do is if you know you're targeting a specific industry sector or business, you want to find out the needs they have. So I talked about Trader Joe's. If we know what their number one need is, if we meet it, then it's working with them to say, look, we meet your demographic needs. Are you looking here? And if not, why? If you don't meet all their qualifications, you're trying to find the other ones that you maybe meet or exceed, and then offer additional insight into the community as to why it might be a good location. So if you're looking at De Pere, and I don't work for Trader Joe's or any grocer, so I can't really say for sure, but especially in the downtown, maybe we don't have that 25% bachelor degree attainment, but we have a college. So we have a student population that maybe would serve in terms of a spending demographic for a retailer. What we're trying to do on the municipal side is make sure we have a deep understanding of who we are as De Pere and what we have to offer, and match that with the needs of potential businesses that we're trying to attract, and then go out and meet with those businesses. There is generally a 3 to 5 year lead time on new stores. So from that first conversation where we might meet with the store and say, why don't you take a look at De Pere? And the store saying, yes, I think De Pere is a market I'd like to be in. That's usually 3 to 5 years until a shovel is put in the ground, because particularly among the national retailers, that's how long they're looking out into the future.
As part of your job, you also look at road extensions and that sort of thing, to like into business parks and into maybe a residential development. Could you kind of give us a little background on how you do that and why you're involved in it?
Yep. Well, infrastructure is a key player in economic development. Like I said, it's a group effort, and that's one of the key components. An example of that is in our industrial parks. We have a lot of city-owned property. We have put in the roads and the utilities to kind of make the property that's available development ready. And so when we locate those roads, we're aligning them in ways that create parcels that are of hopefully a good size and shape to attract certain types of businesses. And we have to adapt to that too. So one thing we've been hearing recently is that there's quite a bit of interest for maybe 1 to 2 acre lots in industrial parks to serve a lot of startup businesses that are growing and doing very well, but maybe aren't ready to take on a 5 acre site. So we're looking at ways that we can adjust our property lines in the East Industrial Park and West Industrial Park to meet those needs.
I think one thing that's really interesting about the city of De Pere, and I don't know if it's unique or not, but it's something that we do and we've done for an awful long time, and that's where we have a development staff meeting every Thursday, actually. And could you kind of give us a little background as to, first of all, why we have that and what we do in it?
Right. Well, that's under your guidance, so kudos to you, because that's an incredibly powerful meeting to have. The development team meeting is comprised of folks from the Public Works Department, City Attorney's Office, City Administrator's Office, my office, and then our planner. It allows us weekly to go into any development projects that are going on, touch base on infrastructure projects. It gives our entire group a shared knowledge of what may be coming up on the city, which gives us additional input as to how we can help development out. So, for example, if I bring up the notion that I might have talked to someone who's looking to locate and they're looking for a particular property that I'm not even thinking of, someone in Public Works might know that a utility extension is happening next year that I'm not aware of, and all of a sudden we might have a property that I didn't have on my own. It's that team effort that's really, really important.
And I think it also helps out with the infrastructure, with the Department of Public Works and Engineering. They can kind of tell us what we can and what we can't do,
yes.
right?
It makes us powerful as an economic development department because then we're more than sales. You know, we're more than just selling the community because we're giving really good information. So if I can pair possible sites with the knowledge of this site is going to need a stormwater pond and this site needs a utility extension, then I'm giving better information to a developer, which makes us a better community to work in.
So Kim, if anyone has a question or wants to have more information about economic development or the planning end of your department, how can they get in touch with you, or what should they do?
Well, the city website is a great first start. Our economic development and planning page has our comprehensive plan. It has the downtown master plan. From the website you can link to our zoning code. It has all the forms and applications. If for anything project specific, you can absolutely reach out to myself or our city planner, Peter Schleins, either by phone or by email, and that information is available on our website also.
So Kim, we're just about out of time. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, just thank you for the opportunity to serve this great community. I'm enjoying it very much.
Well, thank you very much for choosing De Pere to come and advance your career. Thank you, and also for taking the time to provide our viewers with the information about economic development and the planning department for the city of De Pere. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
This concludes another episode of the Mayor's Corner. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Mayor Mike Walsh.